I'm glad you could drop by. It's Peter Fox here from St Edward's Castle, Donington. A lot of people who tune into this series of thoughts for the day, they tell me that I talk a lot about family. I suppose that's true. I do talk about family quite a bit. I get that from my mum, I think. You know, people fall into two categories when they talk family. Some people talk about family and they mean something really closed. You know, it's right or wrong, my family. It's about intense loyalty to a small group of people. Other people have a much more open-ended attitude to family, and that was my mum. I mean, she would let anybody in. To her, family was a kind of constantly expanding group of people, and she was always collecting, waifs and strays, animal and human. It was just the way she was made. She had a real prejudice in favour of the underdog. If somebody had a hard luck story, my mum was right there, usually with a cup of tea. So I suppose I've got my idea of family from her, really. It's not always easy, living with somebody like that. I mean, she was our mum after all. I was her family, whether I liked it or not. But she kept letting all these other people in, you know, and a bit like God that way, he lets anybody in, our Father. So consequently, I've grown up with an attitude to family that means it's a constantly expanding thing. And it's a good thing in lots of ways because it means I have people I think of as brothers and sisters all over the world. I mean, including Papua New Guinea. I mean, I arrived in Papua New Guinea, first time I'd ever been really any far away from home, and found myself in a country where I didn't speak the language and didn't know the culture. There were people willing to take me in and look after me, brothers and sisters in Papua New Guinea. But it isn't always easy inside a family to communicate adequately, especially when there's a language barrier. And that's how I ended up owning a bat. I don't mean a cricket bat. I don't mean a baseball bat. I mean a bat. I mean a big, furry, black, scaly bat. It all happened because of language. See, the thing is, I'd not been in Papua New Guinea very long, so I was only just beginning to learn my way around. In Papua New Guinea, you've got 800 different languages. So naturally, when Papua New Guineans talk to each other, they have to find another language to talk in. And the answer to that is a language called Pidgin. Pidgin is like the kazoo of the language world. It's not a difficult language to learn, but it does have its own rules, and it's very, very easy to get it wrong. That's how I ended up with the bat. It was, I suppose, towards the end of 1979, and I was in a place called Nambayufa, way up in the Papua New Guinea Eastern Highlands. And if you didn't know Pidgin, you couldn't communicate. My Pidgin was fairly new. I hadn't been in the country very long, and I was really learning how to get around in Pidgin. And that's the reason we had the problem. I was out ambling through Nambayufa one morning, and a guy said to me, "Hey, Father, you want to come and see my hole?" My hole? Big hole, small hole? Oh, big fella, small fella. I'm in nap, he said, which didn't help me very much. Well, I'm a person, particularly back then I was a person who liked an adventure, so I said, yeah, okay, that'd be good. And we set off, walking to see this hole, whatever that was. Walking barefoot through the jungle, no point wearing sandals or anything because the mud would just suck the sandals off your feet. So we're walking barefoot through the jungle, and one of the things you found all the time in Papua New Guinea was you never had any idea how long something was going to take or how far you were going to have to travel. And when you asked, if you said, how have we got far to go? How near is it? They'd say, classic Papua New Guinea, they'd say, close to long way. Which means, well, what does it mean? Little bit far, or not too far, or I don't know. It's a bit like the English expression, quite a long way. You don't really know how far it is. And I didn't know how long it was going to take. 2 hours we spent trekking through the jungle. There was this guy and his brothers, There was any hangers on, anybody who was at a loose end, they came along too for the one. There's always a multitude of kids, inevitable in Papua New Guinea. Everywhere you go, there's always squadrons of children following you about. And there we all were, trekking our way through the jungle for 2 hours, and we reached this river. Now, when I say river, really what I'm talking about is a long waterfall. It was rapids, and this is where our way led next, straight into that river and up it. So we're wading up a waterfall, a long waterfall, about chest deep in the water. When we got to the other end, we finally reached the hole. It turned out this hole was the most amazing complex of caves going deep under the mountain. It was incredible. There were stalactites coming down, there were stalagmites coming up, and there were these black, deep, intense black shadows up against the blackness of the ceiling of the caves. And we began to make our way through these caves deeper and deeper and deeper, like a labyrinth, into this mountainside. And that's when I discovered why we were there. We were there to hunt the flying foxes. They make a very tasty meal. And those black clouds, those black shadows up there in the roof of the cave, they were millions and millions of bats. Every once in a while we'd pause and somebody would throw a spear up into this black shadow, and the black shadow would take off and go clattering and chattering all around our ears, away from us, flying out of the cave. We must have been in there for a couple of hours in this cave trying to catch these bats. But I don't know whether I was relieved or not. We didn't actually catch any of them. So we gave up eventually, and we started making our way back out of the cave. Now, the squadrons of children I was talking to, they'd all been sitting outside the entrance to this cave. And while we were inside trying to get flying foxes with our spears, one of the children outside had caught a bat. You know, it's the simple things that work. The cloud of bats had come out, and this little girl had just reached up and grabbed one. It came out, and she's holding this blooming great bat on the end of a piece of liana. She's tied its feet together, and this bat's just on the end of this rope, hanging upside down, you know, trying to get away, tied by its feet. It was an amazing looking animal, this big flying fox. This is when I made my mistake. Learn from me, children. If you're new to a language and you're new to a culture, be very, very careful about making jokes. Making the wrong joke in a language you don't understand too well can get you in a lot of trouble. It certainly did me, because that's what I did. I tried to make a joke. Now, it wasn't that great a joke to start with, really. It was only meant to raise a smile. What I wanted to say was, oh yes, well, this bat and I, we must be related because we both have the same name, you know. Flying Fox, Peter Fox. I know. Not that funny. It's even worse if you translate it into Pidgin. In Pidgin it sounds like this. Ah, now, this Bella, black buckies, name belong em, long top belong me, Flying Fox. Now me too, me stop. Fox. Peter Fox. Me too, Bella, stop one talk. Well, I'd hardly started on this thing and was already beginning to regret it. Hang on a minute, this isn't going to work, I thought. But, you know, once you're committed. I'm into the joke. They're all listening very, very earnestly. And when I finished, I laughed uproariously so they'd all realise it was a joke. Nobody else laughed. Nobody else laughed. Took it deadly seriously. I suppose they thought to themselves it wasn't such a strange thing for this peculiar foreign person to imagine he was related to a bat. So they gave it to me. Now I discovered a whole new definition of endurance. It's wading down a waterfall or knee-deep in the mud of a jungle, holding at the end of a long piece of liana a furious, furry, bat. And of course, as you went through the deep grass, or you walked through the deep undergrowth, or you went through the river, you had to lift the liana a bit higher, which swung the bat closer and closer and closer to my face. I had a chance to observe a flying fox at really close quarters. David Attenborough would have been proud. They're quite cute, you know, close up. They've got these very beautiful little ears, little cute ears, and they've got these wonderful shiny long wings, very scaly, and then they've got these little furry bodies and the most beautiful, bright, deep brown eyes. Beautiful eyes blinking because it didn't like the light. And they also have a row of incredibly sharp little teeth. And those teeth were getting closer and closer to me as I walked deeper. And I knew the one thing that bat wanted was a little piece of me. Well, I had this bat. I owned a bat. I was the proud owner of a bat for all of about an hour. And then I managed to find an excuse and give it back to them. I said, no, I've had such a nice time visiting your hole and everything. I'd like you to keep this bat as a mark of our friendship. Because personally, I got quite fond of it and I didn't want to eat that bat. And I really sincerely hoped the bat wouldn't want to eat me. So be careful when you're travelling through another country, talking to friends whose language you don't speak too well. Just be careful the jokes you make. God bless.